Welcome to Pastor Andrew's Inspirations. If you enjoy these videos, please click on the red subscribe button below the video and the bell for more. Welcome to our online church, a congregation made up of many from around the world. No offering is necessary. Subscribing and watching videos will keep us alive under God's watchful eyes. Today we will be learning part 1 of 8 in our series on biblical names, starting with E. Abed, the father of Gal, mentioned in Judges chapter 9. The son of Jonathan, one of the heads of household who returned from the Babylonian exile, in the book of Ezra chapter 1, verse 6. Abed Malek. Abed Malek is mentioned in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 38, as an Ethiopian official at the palace of King Zedekiah of Judah during the siege of Jerusalem in 597 BCE. The name is translated as servant of the king. The text relates that he was a Cushite in Jeremiah chapter 38 verse 7. Abed Malek is notable for rescuing the prophet Jeremiah from the cistern into which he had been cast to his death in Jeremiah chapter 38 verses 4 to 13. Later, Jeremiah relayed God's message to him, saying that he, Abed Malek, would not fall by the sword. During the fall of Jerusalem to the Babylonians in Jeremiah chapter 39 verses 15 to 18, because he had put his trust in him who God and who is God. Eber. Eber is an ancestor of the Ishmaelites and the Israelites, according to the table of nations, in the book of Genesis, chapters 10 and 11, and the book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 1. Eber was a great-grandson of Noah's son, Shem, and the father of Peleg, born when Eber was 34 years old, and of Joktan. He was the son of Shelah, a distant ancestor of Abraham. According to the Hebrew Bible, Eber died at the age of 464, when Jacob was 79. In the Septuagint, Eber's father is called Salah. His son is called Peleg, born when Eber was 134 years old, and he had other sons and daughters. Eber lived to an age of 464 years. In the Septuagint book of Genesis, chapter 11, verses 14 to 17. The Aramaic Hebrew root is connected with crossing over and beyond, considering that other names for descendants of Shem also stand for places. Eber can also be considered the name of an area, perhaps near Assyria. A number of medieval scholars, such as Michael the Syrian, Bar-Hebraeus, and Agapius the historian, mentioned the prevailing view, that the Hebrews had received their name from Eber, while also pointing out that according to others, the name Hebrew meant those who cross, and in reference to those who crossed the Euphrates River with Abram from Ur to Haran, and then to the land of Canaan. In some translations of the New Testament, he is referred to once as Heber. In Luke chapter 3, verse 35, in biblical Greek, the son of Serug, the son of Ru, the son of Peleg, the son of Heber, the son of Selah. However, he should not be confused with the Heber of the Old Testament, who was a grandson of Asher in Genesis chapter 46, verse 17. Eber, great-grandson of Shem, refused to help with the building of the Tower of Babel. So his language was not confused when it was abandoned. He and his family alone retained the original human language, a concept referred to as lingua humana in Latin. Hebrew, a language named after Eber, in Genesis chapter 10, verse 21. Also to Shem, the father of all children of Eber, and the older brother of Japheth, children were born. Eber is sometimes referred to in classical Islamic writings as the father of the prehistoric original Arabs, who lived in the Arabian Peninsula after the deluge. Eber was also identified with the Quranic prophet Hud by some of the early Muslim authorities. Other sources identify the prophet Hud as Eber's son. Ebi Assad. Ebi Assad, meaning my father has gathered, was a son of Korah of the tribe of Levi, according to Exodus chapter 6 verse 24, born in Egypt. Eglon. Eglon was one of David's wives and the mother of Ithream, according to 2 Samuel chapter 3 verse 4. Eglon. According to the book of Judges, Eglon was king of Moab, who oppressed Israel. He was the head of the confederacy of Moab. Ammon and Amalek in their assault on Israel. Eglon reigned over the Israelites for 18 years. One day Ehud, who was left-handed, came presenting a customary tribute. He tricked Eglon and stabbed him with his sword. When Ehud attempted to draw the sword back out, the obese king's excess fat prevented its retrieval. His servants believed he was relieving himself, left him be. In the aftermath of his death, the Moabites were routed, and the Israelites enjoyed 80 years of peace. Rabbis in the Talmudic tradition claimed that Ruth was Eglon's daughter. According to this tradition, Eglon was rewarded for rising out of respect when Ehud mentioned the Israelite God by having King David as a descendant. This can also be seen as an attempt to provide a royal lineage to David. The Talmud also describes Eglon as the grandson of Balak. The two Moabite women from the book of Ruth, Orpah and Ruth, were sisters, and both were daughters of the Moabite king Eglon. Eglon was a son of Balak, the king of Moab, introduced in Numbers chapter 22. Talmudic folklore states that because Eglon stood up when Ehud said he had a message for him from God in Judges chapter 3 verse 20, his reward was that his descendant would be King David. Ehi. In Genesis chapter 46 verse 21, Ehi is the third son of Benjamin. In 1 Chronicles chapter 8 verse 1, he is called Ahara. And in Numbers chapter 26 verse 38, he is called Ahiram. Ehud. Ehud ben Gera is described in the biblical book of Judges as a judge who was sent by God to deliver the Israelites from Moabite domination. He is described as being left-handed and a member of the tribe of Benjamin. In Judges chapter 3 verses 12 to 30, Ehud was sent by the Israelites to the Moabite king Eglon on the pretext of delivering the Israelites annual tribute. He made a double-edged short sword about 18 inches long, useful for a stabbing thrust. Being left-handed, he could conceal the sword on his right thigh, where it was not expected. Left-handedness is significant. The left side of the body is often associated with deception or darkness. It is a tactical advantage in war against the majority who are often right-handed. And it is symbolic for being outside of the culturally accepted social norm of leadership in ancient Israel. Once they met, Ehud told Eglon he had a secret message for him. Eglon dismissed his attendants and allowed Ehud to meet him in private. Ehud said, "I have a message from God for you," drew his sword and stabbed the king in his abdomen. After Ehud stabbed the king, the end of Judges chapter 3 verse 22 reads, "And the dirt came out," a phrase of uncertain meaning as it is only used once in the Hebrew Bible. The sword disappeared into the wound, and Ehud left it there. He locked the doors to the king's chamber and left. Eglon's assistants returned when too much time had elapsed and found the doors locked. Ehud escaped to the town of Sariah in Ephraim. He sounded the shofar and rallied the Israelite tribes, who killed the Moabites, cutting off the fords of the Jordan River, and invaded Moab itself, killing about 10,000 Moabite soldiers. After the death of Eglon, the narrative reports that there was peace in the land for 80 years. Elada. Elada is the name of a clan in the tribe of Ephraim, personified as an individual. In 1 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 20, the individual who appears is called Elada, depending on how one translates the Hebrew name, while an Eliad appears in the verse 21. This Eliad may possibly be a repetition of the same name. It is still uncertain exactly how the chronicler intended for the names in verses 20 and 21 to relate to one another. Elah. Elah was the fourth king of Israel, the son and successor of Baasha. Chapter 16 of 1 Kings relates how Elah and all his family members were murdered by his chariot commander Zimri, who became his successor. In the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah, Elah, son of Baasha, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Tirzah 2 years. Zimri, one of his officials who had command of half his chariots, plotted against him. Elah was in Tirzah at the time, getting drunk in the home of Arza, the palace administrator at Tirzah. Zimri came in, struck him down, and killed him in the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah. Then he succeeded him as king. As soon as he began to reign and was seated on the throne, he killed off Baasha's whole family. He did not spare a single male, whether relative or friend. So Zimri destroyed the whole family of Baasha, in accordance with the word of the Lord spoken against Baasha through the prophet Jehu, because of all the sins Baasha and his son Elah had committed and had caused Israel to commit, so that they aroused the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, by their worthless idols. As for the other events of Elah's reign, and all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Elam. Elam in the Hebrew Bible is said to be one of the sons of Shem, the son of Noah. The name is also used for the ancient country of Elam, in what is now southern Iran, whose people the Hebrews believed to be the offspring of Elam, son of Shem, in Genesis chapter 10, verse 22. This implies that the Elamites were considered Semites by the Hebrews. Their language was not one of the Semitic languages, but is considered in linguistic isolate. Elam is also mentioned in Genesis 14, describing an ancient war in the time of Abraham, involving Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam at that time. Elam, as a personal name, also refers to other figures appearing in the Hebrew Bible. Elam is the son of Shishak, of the tribe of Benjamin, in 1 Chronicles chapter 8. Elam is the son of Meshelemiah, a Levite of the family of Kohath, in 1 Chronicles chapter 26. Elam is the ancestor of a family that returned with Zerubbabel in Ezra chapters 2 and 7. Elam is the ancestor of a family that returned from the captivity in Ezra chapter 2. Elam is the ancestor of a family that returned with Ezra in Ezra chapter 8. Elam is the father of Jehiel and the grandfather of Shechaniah in Ezra chapter 10. Elam is one of the men who joins Nehemiah in sealing the new covenant in Nehemiah chapter 10. And Elam is also a priest who helps in the rededication of the rebuilt walls of Jerusalem in Nehemiah chapter 12. Alassa. Alassa, meaning made by God, was the name of 4 individuals mentioned in the Bible. The son of Shaphan, who was chosen by King Zedekiah of Judah to be one of the 2 messengers to take Jeremiah's letter to Nebuchadnezzar in Jeremiah chapter 29. He was also the brother of Ahikam, who had taken Jeremiah's part at the time of his arrest after the temple sermon. One of the sons of Pashur, who was rebuked for marrying a foreign woman in Ezra chapter 10. The son of Helez, a Jerahmeelite in 1 Chronicles chapter 2. He is called Elisa in the King James Bible. A descendant of Saul, according to 1 Chronicles chapter 8. He is called Elisa also in the King James Version. Eldah. Eldah appears as one of the sons of Midian, son of Abraham, in Genesis chapter 25 and 1 Chronicles chapter 1. Eldad. Eldad is mentioned in the book of Numbers and described as having prophesied among the Israelites, despite the fact that they had remained in the camp. While 70 elders had gone to the tabernacle outside the camp to receive the ability to prophesy from God, according to the narrative, Joshua asked Moses to forbid Eldad and Medad from prophecy. But Moses argued that it was a good thing that others could prophesy, and that ideally all the Israelites would prophesy. In rabbinical tradition, Eldad and Medad are said to have predicted a war with Gog and Magog, with the king from Magog uniting the non-Jews and launching war in Palestine against the Jews, but these non-Jews being defeated and slain by fire from the throne of God. Some classical rabbinical literature argues that the non-Jews would be at the mercy of the Jewish Messiah. Such messianic connections of Eldad and Medad also circulate among early Christian groups, and a particular popular discussion of such prophecy was even quoted in the apocryphal Shepherd of Hermas. According to biblical scholars, the real purpose of the story was to indicate that prophecy was not restricted to a select few people. However, the text states that Eldad and Medad were of them that were written down, making them less representative of the general population. Although some textual scholars believe that this is a gloss added to the original Elohist account by a later editor who objected to the idea that anyone could become a prophet. The names themselves are hence unimportant to the point of the story, and may have been chosen simply for the sake of assonance. They seem to refer to dad, suggesting polytheism and or a non-Israelite origin. If the names are Hebrew, then dad could mean paternal uncle, with Eldad thus meaning God is the brother of my father, or El is the brother of my father, and Medad meaning one who is of my father's brother. If the names are Assyrian, then Dad could be a corruption of Dadu, meaning beloved, with Eldad thus meaning God is beloved, or El is beloved, and Medad meaning object of affection. If the names are Akkadian, then Dad could be a corruption of Adad, the name of a deity known to the Arameans as Hadad, with Eldad thus meaning El is Hadad, or Hadad is God, and Medad meaning one who is Hadad. According to Jewish tradition, Eldad and Medad are buried in the same cave in Edria. Eliad. Eliad appears in 1 Chronicles chapter 7 as the name of a man who, along with his brother Ezer, is killed by farmers near Philistine, the city of Gath. It is unclear whether Eliad is intended by the chronicler as the son or a later descendant of Ephraim, and it is likewise uncertain whether this Eliad is the same figure as the Eliada mentioned in the previous verse. Eliza. Alassa, or Eliza, meaning made by God, was the name of 4 individuals mentioned in the Bible. The son of Shaphan, who was chosen by King Zedekiah of Judah to be one of the 2 messengers to take Jeremiah's letter to Nebuchadnezzar in Jeremiah chapter 29. He was probably the brother of Achim, who had taken Jeremiah's part at the time of his arrest after the temple sermon. One of the sons of Pashur, who was rebuked for marrying a foreign woman in Ezra chapter 10, the son of Helez, a Jerahmeelite in 1 Chronicles chapter 2, he is called Eliza or Eliza. A descendant of Saul, according to 1 Chronicles chapter 8. Eleazar. Eleazar was a priest in the Hebrew Bible. The second high priest succeeded his father Aaron after he died. He was a nephew of Moses. Eleazar played a number of roles during the course of the Exodus, from creating the plating for the altar, from the fire pans of Korah's assembly to performing the ritual of the red heifer. After the death of his older brothers Nadab and Abihu, he and his younger brother Ithamar were appointed to the charge of the sanctuary. His wife, a daughter of Petuel, bore him Phinehas, who would eventually succeed him as high priest. Leviticus chapter 10 records an incident when Moses was angry with Eleazar and Ithamar for failing to eat a sin offering inside the tabernacle. In accordance with the regulations set out in the preceding chapters of Leviticus regarding the entitlement of the priests to a share of the offerings they made on behalf of the Israelite people. As the Israelites moved through the wilderness during the Exodus journey, Eleazar was responsible for carrying the oil for the lampstand, the sweet incense, the daily grain offering, and the anointing oil, and for oversight of the carriage of the Ark of the Covenant, the table for showbread, the altar, and other tabernacle fittings, which were transported by the Kohathite section of the Levite tribe. Following the rebellion against Moses' leadership, recorded in Numbers 16, Eleazar was charged with taking the rebels' bronze censers and hammering them into a covering for the altar, to act as a reminder of the failed rebellion and the restriction of the priesthood to the Aaronid dynasty. On Mount Hor, he was clothed with the sacred vestments, which Moses took from his father Aaron, and put upon him as successor to his father in the high priest's office, before Aaron's death. Eleazar held the office of high priest for more than 20 years. He took part with Moses in numbering the people, and assisted at the inauguration of Joshua. He assisted in the distribution of the land after the conquest. When he died, he was buried at Gibeah, which had been allotted to his son Phinehas in the hill country of Ephraim. The hill of Phinehas, related in the Bible, is associated with the location of the village of Awarda in the Sumerian section of the current-day West Bank. The high priesthood remained in the family of Eleazar until the time of Eli, into whose family it passed. Eli was a descendant of Ithamar, Eleazar's brother. The high priesthood was restored to the family of Eleazar. In the person of Zadok, after Abiathar was cast out by Solomon, Eleazar is commemorated as a saint in the Eastern Orthodox Church and Roman Catholic Church on September the 2nd, and as one of the holy forefathers in the calendar of saints of the Armenian Apostolic Church on July the 30th. Eleph. Eleph is the name given in Joshua chapter 18, apparently for a town in territory of the tribe of Benjamin, because the name Eleph means thousand, and because the form found in Joshua is in Hebrew Ha-Eleph, literally the thousand. Another understanding of the word is that it is part of a compound name for a town called Zela Haleth, instead of Zela and Eleph being two distinct towns, as in the King James Version. Elohannan, son of Dodo. The biblical Elohannan was the son of Dodo in 2 Samuel chapter 23 and 1 Chronicles chapter 11. He was a member of King David's elite fighters known as the 30. This is part 1 of the biblical names starting with E. Please stay with us for part 2 if you enjoy these videos. Please click on the red subscribe button below and on the bell for more. Adonai Nisi. The Lord is our banner. God's blessings be upon us all.